The following is a production of Frank DeFreitas and the Internet Museum of Holography.
Hello everyone, this is Frank DeFreitas and welcome to another week of HoloTalk for the week of September 27th, 1998. This is an open forum week, which means that the topic will center around lasers and holography, but we won't have a guest this week. And I thought it would be a nice idea to take a show and look back to see where holography was at a specific period in time. So I thought, let's take a look 10 years ago and see what was happening in the field of holography back in the fall of 1988. So that's what we're going to do on this show. But first, I have a few announcements to make. If you're a new HoloTalk listener, I'd like to welcome you to the show, and I hope you come back each week to hear more news and information and special guests with lasers and holograms. And also, if you're a regular listener, you'll notice something new on the HoloTalk page, and that is a complete menu of shows from the last season. So if you scroll down the page itself, you'll see a brief description of each one of the shows, and if you find something that interests you, just click on the link and that show will play for you. It will also download if you'd like to start a collection of HoloTalk shows on your own computer or floppy disks or whatever, or zip disks. Just download it to whatever hard drive you have, and you can play it from your own hard drive anytime you feel like listening to it. Also, back in the multimedia theater, I have a new video presentation. This video was sent to me a number of years ago by a friend of mine in New York, and also a friend of who's in the video, and his name is Bartis Allen. The video is of Patrick Boyd when he was doing his post-portrait holography at the Royal College of Art in London, and it shows what the models go through to get ready for the post-portrait and the different outfits that they're wearing and things like that. It's an 8-minute show, and if you have Real Player 5.0, which you should be to be listening to this show, it will also play video for you, so you might want to stop back in the multimedia theater and watch that as well. On occasional shows, I'll take a show to answer listeners' questions about lasers and holography. And there's two ways that you can get on the HoloTalk show. Number one is you can call the toll-free number, which is toll-free across the United States, and that number is 1-800-458-3525. You'll also see the number listed right in the Real Audio window as you're listening down at the third line there. Or you can send an email to holotalk@holoworld.com. If you happen to call in, I won't use your real name on the air. I will take your question in your voice and put it into the show and answer your question. Or if you want to just send an email, I'll read your question on the air and answer it there as well. If you have news and information that we would like to have included on an upcoming broadcast, please send it along and I'll see that it gets on the show. Okay, so let's move on. I have a filing cabinet that is just packed with information about holography that actually goes back into the 40s. I have information on patents and publications. I have all the magazines and newsletters that were published, and I went in there to see what I could find from 10 years ago, from 1988, and I came up with 4. Holographics International, Laser News, the Hologram Newsletter, which is a newsletter that I published from 1983 to, I believe, 1991 or 93, and Holosphere, which was a publication of the Museum of Holography in New York. So I dusted these babies off, and I figured let's page through here and see what we have inside these magazines and see what was happening in the field of holography 10 years ago. Let's start off with Holographics International, and just if you'll go along with me here, what I'm going to do is just, I did thumb through these already, so I have a pretty good idea what I'm going to mention. So just stick with me here as I go through page by page. This is a publication that was done out of Great Britain, England, and the editor-publisher was Sonny Baines. Now, on the inside cover, there was a beautiful embossed hologram of a saxophone player, and it was done with a device called a holoscope. It said the simplest system for professional holography. You record the picture, and basically the holoscope is a photographic camera traveling along a guide rail. And this company then initialize and duplicate your stereograms, and it was produced by Hologram Industries in France, which I imagine is sort of the predecessor to this new Sony camera, which has a camera that travels along the rail, only it has a desktop-size holographic printer as well that contains a little laser diode and a film transport mechanism that actually does the development and everything and gives you your finished hologram right there. So this was actually happening 10 years ago. One of the stories in here was True Color. There's a story called True Color, Oxford Blue. Let me just read the first paragraph here just to fill you in on what was happening with this. I found this very interesting. Work done at Oxford University's Department of Engineering Science has produced the truest, most lifelike color hologram to date. The hologram shown of a mug full of color pencils betters the holograms which preceded it because of the laser beam wavelengths used to expose it. The wavelengths chosen by the Oxford researchers combined to create a larger number of colors than ever before, making the finished hologram more realistic than had previously been possible. And it shows two very nice color pictures of the hologram itself. The hologram's called Pencils, Natural Color Hologram by Paul Hubel, Hubel. And this is interesting because I get a lot of emails asking me, are there true color holograms? And yes, I wouldn't say they're common right now, but there's been quite a bit of research into full color holography in the 90s, and it's something to see that it also goes back into the 80s. Now, other stories that were in here, we have an event calendar. Let's take a look and see what events were happening back in 1988. 28th of July to 30th of November, exhibition of multicolored holograms by John Kaufman, and that was in Los Angeles. 15th of August to 30th of September, 1988, exhibition of holograms at the Space Coast Science Center in Melbourne, Florida. October 14th to February 5th, Images in Time and Space at the Pavilion, San Jose, California. I bet you that brings some memories back for some people. Other items in this issue is Integrating Pulse with Other Holographic Work, which was the lab notes section, Stereography and the Art of Direct Viewing, which was an article by David Piznelli, I believe. I hope I pronounced that right, David. I'm sorry if I didn't. Oh, and the center spread was actually a color spread on the third International Symposium on Display Holography at Lake Forest College. Some of the pictures on here, we have Setsuko Ishii with Canadian artist Sidney Dinsmore. That's one of the photos. Another photo of Australian artist Paula Dawson. And also a stereo photograph of one of her laser transmission holograms, which I guess was on display there. A nice photo of Paula and Doris Vila resting in the shade during the symposium, during one of the breaks. Photo of Ed Dietrich. And a photo of TJ outside as well. And we also have what's up here in the upper left-hand corner, Mike Tuttle, which I believe this Mike was from the Media Lab up at MIT with Dr. Benton. His piece entitled Murray's Fourth Birthday won the award for the best artistic work for the Duran Art Institute exhibition at the Symposium 1988. Other articles about the holographic endoscope. Claudette Abrams, Personal Effects. Some very nice large format white light transmission holograms are in the magazine as well. Another article with a very large headline, T-shirt market up for grabs. And that's basically what we had in this issue, a nice 6-inch by 6-inch embossed hologram on the back of this magazine from Global Images depicting different things under the sea, seashells, starfish, things of that nature. Very nice. Next up, Fall 1988 edition of Laser News, Volume 8, Number 3, cover story, Roberta Booth, The Magic of Light and Shape and Form, which was written by Patty Pink, who was the editor at the time. Inside story was by Dr. Bert Myers. I just got an email from Bert yesterday, and he's going to be a guest on the show. He was actually researching holographic development of showing internal organs at the Veterans Administration Hospital in New Orleans, Louisiana. And he's going to come on the show and talk about some of his research. But before he was involved in holography, he was actually involved in X-ray photography, not of bones and things of that nature, but an artistic type of X-ray photography where he would take common things like mushrooms and different plants and things of that nature and do X-ray photography of them. It's very beautiful work, and I believe his work has been shown in many galleries and also many publications across the United States and probably around the world. His article in this issue of Laser News was From X-Ray Art Techniques to Holography. Very nice. Also an article on pulsed ruby laser portraits in Paris. Excuse me. Interesting. Oh, here in the back we have some publications. Let's see all the publications that were available back in 1988 for holography. We had Crosstalk from the Interference Hologram Gallery. Holographics International, which we just had on here from BCM Holographics. Holography News, which was published in Washington, D.C., and I think they may be out of Denver now. I'm not quite sure. Holosphere by the Museum of Holography. The Hologram, which was my newsletter. Laser and Optronics, Leonardo, Real Image Newsletter, SPIE Proceedings, and Young Artists Using Science and Technology. All different publications that were dealing with lasers and holograms at the time. My newsletter, which I started in 1983, on the cover of that for fall 1988 was On the Wind of Change, Holography Set Sail on a Voyage to a New World. And I believe this was actually about holography and holographic principles making inroads into the collective consciousness of mass culture in the U.S. and abroad. It deals with holographic perception, also holographic memory and things of that nature. Inside, the Holography Institute had a little article about holography in Petaluma, California. Of course, we all know they left Petaluma and actually went to San Francisco. A lot of little news snippets here. The book review for fall 1988 was The Magic of Holography by Philip Heckman, Athenium Press. 1995, not a bad price. I don't think you'd find a book like that today for $19.95. And another interesting thing, the story of holographic music was in this issue as well. And I'm going to have a special show coming up where we're going to have a chance to listen to some holographic music. Now, you know, with stereo music, you have separation in the right channel and left channel. And with some of the home entertainment systems, you'll have your surround sound and things like that. This show that I'm going to do is going to be completely on holographic music and sound. And it gives a three-dimensional field of listening, not only left and right and front and back, but also height. I will have a couple of sound snippets that you'll be able to download, and because all of this is actually encoded right into the sound itself, it will work on your own computer. If you have a pair of headphones, plug your headphones in, you'll be able to sit back and listen to a very interesting field of sound, not only left, right, back, and forth, but going up and down as well. One of the selections is of a fireworks display where you can hear the fireworks being launched going up into the sky and exploding up in the sky. I've heard this, and it sounds like they're actually exploding up in the sky, so it's going to be very interesting. I'm waiting for that CD to come in. I just ordered that not too long ago, so that should be here shortly, and that show should be up maybe within the next few weeks, so let's look for that in October. This issue of Holosphere, Fall 1988, Volume 15, Number 5. Let's take a look and see who was working on Holosphere 10 years ago. This was a publication of the Museum of Holography in New York. Acting Managing Editor was Janine W. McKenna. Issue Editor was Kent Alexander. Arts Editor was Sidney Dinsmore. Business Editor was Shoshana Goldberg. Education Editor was Andrew Pepper. Technology Editor was Ed Wesley. And Circulation Manager, Mary Duffy. And once again, we have a few articles that are in here about the symposium that was right about the same time, and also a large article about holographic bifocal contact lenses by Suzanne St. Cyr, C-Y-R. I hope I pronounced that right, Suzanne. And if I didn't, it's not my fault, because I've always heard your name pronounced by Martin Zober down in Rockford, Maryland, so he's the one that made me realize that that's how you pronounce your name, so Suzanne St. Cyr. Now, this is a very large article in here as well. Graham Saxby with his usual column for Holosphere, Jottings from the UK, and also Department of Partly Baked Ideas. There's a blast from the past, and always a pleasure to read those. And an article naming a new Museum of Holography director, Martha Tomko. I had the pleasure of meeting Martha and working with her a few times, and unfortunately she lost a battle to cancer several years after she was appointed to this position at the Museum of Holography, and that was a very sad day for everyone. The first annual award ceremony for achievement in holography. So I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to be very sorry if I miss anyone. This is a lot of type and very small type. So I'm going to just browse through this quickly and read as I scan this. Dr. Stephen Benton presented Rudy Burkhout the 1987 Award for Achievement in Art Holography, citing his landscape series. It was particularly fitting that Dr. Benton, as the inventor of rainbow or white light transmission holography, Burkhout's preferred mode of expression, made the presentation. It was evident from their remarks that Benton and Burkhout not only share mutual admiration, but also friendship. The next presentation, the 1987 Award for Innovation in Commercial Use of Display Holography, was made by Dan Schweitzer to Light Fantastic and Richard Seymour for the holography illustrated fantasy book The Mirror Stone. And Dr. Alan Cohen, who spent 10 years trying to convince lens producers of the viability of his product, was sincerely touched and honored to receive the award for his invention of holographic bifocal lenses. Very interesting stuff. It also goes on to welcome the new education director at the Museum of Holography as well, Susan Cowles. Officially commencing in the fall, Susan Cowles has been hired as the new MOH Director of Educational Services in light of the fact that she was hired by departing Director Ian Lancaster. Ms. Cowles, has agreed to a 6-month contract enabling a new director to review and approve an extension of her employment agreement. So that's what was happening at the Museum of Holography. And we have a photo here from the first annual awards ceremony of our happy campers. Holographers from left to right: Rudy Burkhout, Steve Weinstock, Jody Burns, Steve Benton, and Dieter Jung. Share a laugh before the party. Pretty nice stuff. What's interesting going back and taking a look to see what was happening with holography 10 years ago through these publications. I have a news item I'd like to read before we close out the show, and I will get into that right away. Nominations for the 1998 Excellence in Holography Awards may be submitted to the International Hologram Manufacturers Association, the IHMA, through October 9, 1998. Winners will be announced at the 9th Annual HoloPack HoloPrint Awards Dinner on November 11, 1998 in Rome, Italy. Each year, IHMA, the Worldwide Association of the Holography Industry, and Reconnaissance International, publisher of Holography News, combine to recognize the outstanding commercial uses of holography from the previous year. Any organization involved in the production of the holographic project may apply for an award in one of the following categories: New Hologram Product, Authentication Product, Most Novel Use of Holograms, and Purpose-Designed Holograms. Nomination forms may be obtained from IHMA's Denver, Colorado, or London, England offices. And if you have a pencil and paper ready, I will give you the ways to contact this organization in just a few minutes. Last year's winners included the New York Times and Light Vision Confections for their holographic lollipop, which received Best of Year, used as a premium to launch the new Times Color Edition. Campbell Soup and Van Leer Metallized Products won Most Novel Use for their collectible Spaghetti-O labels with holographic scenes from Johnny Quest. Hologram Industries' HoloCIS project took honors as an excellent new vehicle identification system used in France, and American Express and OPSEC were commended for their use of special holograms, and in parentheses it has Excelgrams, to stop counterfeiting of traveler's checks. The IHMA has already received a number of innovative submissions and encourages any company working with holograms to apply. Nominees must sign a statement vouching that they have complied with the IHMA's Code of Conduct, including respecting the copyrights of all parties. There is no cost to apply. The winning submissions will be on display at the HoloPack HoloPrint Conference at the Cavalieri Hilton in Rome, Italy, and will be shown at several trade shows through 1999. The IHMA is an association of more than 60 of the world's leading hologram producers working together to advance the interests of the industry. One of its foremost achievements is the Hologram Image Register, a hologram registry that protects security holograms from being copied. For more information, and here you go, here's your information, folks, email ReconUSA, I'll spell that for you, it's RECONNUSA at AOL.com, or in Europe to Ian M. Lancaster, that's IANMLANCASTER, like Lancaster, Pennsylvania, at CompuServe.com. or visit their website at www.ihma.org. The website address again is www.ihma.org, and that's our news item for the week. Thank you very much, folks, for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the show, and I hope you tune in each and every week for more news and information and special guests in the field of lasers and holography here on HoloTalk. This is Frankie Freitas. See you next week.